It's no secret that there's a lot of underlying sinister tones in the Fallout franchise. The developers were clever to include locations that were either hidden for the player to haphazardly stumble upon to shake the way the player views the world, or left in the open to send a message about the real workings of this broken world. Either way, here's a list of the creepiest locations from each Fallout game.
There'd better be a killer reason for standing in my shadow. Does next on the menu ring a bell for ya, Normie?
Fallout, Necropolis. With a name like Necropolis, you know this area of the original Fallout is going to be sinister. A city of the dead? Considering the game's setting, what makes this place special? Well, the city is intact, but abandoned, and people who go there tend to vanish. As such, characters avoid it whenever possible. But of course, the player is going to give this ghost town a visit. The ominous soundtrack adds to the creepiness of Necropolis, and it turns out it's become a city inhabited by ghouls. Some live on the surface and contribute to the ghost stories about the place, while others live underground in the sewers. What? You say a city of ghouls isn't that creepy? Then let's dive into the history of Necropolis to see how it got that way. Necropolis is the site of Vault 12. With Vault 12, Vault-Tec had a specific experiment in mind, studying the effects of radiation on the people inside. As such, Vault 12's doors were intentionally designed to not seal shut properly. First, other people forced their way inside to seek the vault's protection. Then the radiation began leaking in. The inhabitants of Vault 12 were doomed to become the first ghouls. A ghost town? Spooky but familiar. A city of ghouls? Unsettling but not terrible. A vault where the people who thought they were protected there were intentionally exposed to radiation as part of an experiment. Yes, now that's definitely creepy. Fallout 2 Ghost Farm. Music can work wonders for atmosphere. The music picked for the Ghost Farm in Fallout 2 elevates it to levels of creepiness it would never have managed otherwise. The theme, City of Lost Angels, returns from the first game, where it was used for the Boneyard. With this music playing in the background, you walk toward a huge cornfield, with impaled corpses lining the path. If your perception is high enough, you'll be able to see that the corpses are actually just dummies. That might make you feel a little better, or at least until you enter the house at the center of the cornfield and fall through a concealed trap door, taking damage and possibly crippling a limb from the fall. Now you get to meet the Ghost Farm's mutated inhabitants. During the war, a militia group sealed themselves and their families underground for protection. As a result, their descendants, known as the Slags, are unable to enjoy sunlight or live on the surface. When they ran out of supplies in their underground home, they started the farm up above so that they could tend crops at night. To the people in the area, the farm appeared to be abandoned, so a local man moved in. This was no good for the Slags, who decided to scare people away once and for all by covering themselves in glowing fungi to appear like ghosts and setting up impaled dummies all around the farm. Now, people are afraid to go near the place, and even if the truth makes it less disturbing than it appears, the Ghost Farm still qualifies as one of Fallout 2's creepiest locations, especially on your first visit. Fallout 3 Dunwich Building. To any fan of H.P. Lovecraft's stories, the name the Dunwich Building is bound to set off alarms, drawing its name from Lovecraft's short story, The Dunwich Horror. Fallout 3's Dunwich Building is one of the creepiest locations in the Fallout series and a general homage to Lovecraft. Such strange things happen inside the Dunwich Building that people still disagree on whether they're intentional or glitches. Paranormal events like doors opening on their own, items falling to the ground, mysterious footsteps, and a hallucination of the building's past. It's possible to go through the Dunwich Building without witnessing some of these events, but it appears as though they're just scripted to happen under specific circumstances. But surely a few haunted house effects aren't enough to get a location on this list. Don't worry, the Dunwich Building has much more. Audio logs throughout the building recount the story of Jamie Dexter Palabras, a man whose life changed forever thanks to a strange book. After encountering an obelisk in the building, he becomes a ghoul. Lovecraft references run rampant here. Jamie's story has parallels with the Dunwich Horror. His book is a nod to the Necronomicon. His name references the Lovecraft character Charles Dexter Ward. One of his logs references the Necronomicon writer Abdul al-Azad, and the madness-inducing obelisk also whispers the name Al-Hazred, as well as Geth, most likely a reference to the underwater city of R'lyeh. The Dunwich Building's backstory might not be as unsettling as some of the others, but it makes up for it with its spooky presentation and Lovecraftian tones.
Greetings, martyr, and welcome. If you're here now, it means you've been offered up as a sacrifice so that your vault can continue to thrive.
Fallout New Vegas, Vault 11. You have to love the Vault-Tec's social experiments. They provide so much material for lists like this. In the case of Vault 11 in Fallout New Vegas, however, the real horror doesn't lie so much with the social experiment itself, but how it worked out. After Vault 11 initially sealed, its inhabitants were presented with an ominous message. Every year, they had to sacrifice one of the vault dwellers. If they didn't, the computer would automatically kill everyone inside. That's a pretty twisted situation. The vault's overseer knew about it going into it, which didn't please the others, so they picked him as the first sacrifice. From then on, the two roles were joined together. Whoever they elected as the overseer was also the person they sacrificed that year. This led to grim situations where people were nominated as overseer by their enemies, or the threat of this was used for blackmail. Vault 11 had become a location run by fear. Finally, one overseer changed the rules so that the sacrifice would be picked randomly by the computer instead of being elected. This led to chaos and fighting, as people attempted to force her to change the law back to the way it used to be. By the time it was over, only 5 people remained. The 5 survivors decided to defy the system and refused to pick a new sacrifice, only for the computer to tell them, "Congratulations, citizens of Vault 11, you have made the decision to not sacrifice one of your own. You can walk with your head held high, knowing that your commitment to human life is a shining example to us all." The vault was then unsealed. Yes, refusing to go along with the human sacrifices was actually the correct answer, but they were down to 5 survivors before they realized that. It's like the Milgram experiment, but 1,000 times worse. At least those 5 survived, though, right? Right? Actually, after an argument over whether they should leave the vault or commit suicide because of what they did, only one inhabitant of Vault 11 actually got out. Vault 11 might not look like a particularly creepy location on the surface, but once you learn the truth about what happened, what the people did, how it turned out, and that their years of human sacrifice weren't even necessary. It's definitely one of the most disturbing Fallout locations. Fallout 4 Pikmin Gallery. Fallout 4 continued the tradition of Fallout creepiness with many more disturbing locations, including a follow-up to the Dunwich building. But while the Dunwich Borer Mines is certainly creepy, our pick from Fallout 4 is yet another Lovecraft shoutout, the Pikmin Gallery. When you first go through the door into the Pikmin Gallery, you might not be expecting much. After all, it doesn't sound like a particularly scary place, unless you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft and pick up on the name as a reference to his story, Pikmin's Model. If so, you might be a little more prepared. Unlike the Dunwich building, however, this one isn't a direct parallel to the story it draws its name from. The Pikmin Gallery is filled with mutilated corpses, blood-streaked walls, piles of flesh, and decapitated heads on spikes. And this is an art gallery after all, so there are plenty of disturbing, bloody paintings on display alongside everything else. If you continue to explore, you'll descend into the basement, and then a series of tunnels, where you'll meet Pikmin himself. Pikmin is a calm, polite artist who considers the gruesome spectacle above to be the height of art, and amuses himself by collecting raiders' heads. And how does Pikmin collect their heads? When he kills raiders, he leaves behind a calling card that depicts a heart drawn in blood and a message taunting other raiders to come after him. Assuming you save him from the raiders, he'll give you a knife as a thank you gift, along with a note marked with another bloody heart and the message, "Thanks, killer." Presumably, he has returned to working on his gruesome art. It might not be the scariest location, but thanks to the unusual decor and Pikmin's polite mannerisms, and of course the Lovecraft reference, we've picked Pikmin Gallery as the creepiest Fallout 4 location. I hope you enjoyed this list, and if you did, leave a like. I'm looking forward to more interesting worlds to explore from Bethesda and their franchises, and with that, their hidden dark secrets.